I, for one, am not an all-star game in any sport. I don't like the NBA. I don't like NHL. I don't like MLB. I don't like any of the all-star games. While they're fun, they're not tune in for me, right? MLS was always a little bit different. It's like, okay, cool. We're going to see our best players play against somebody big, right? The Arsenals, the Barcelonas, the Bayern Munichs, all these really good ones, right? And over the last couple of years, they've turned it into MLS versus Liga MX, which on the surface seems pretty cool. But when you combine it with Club World Cup, Champions League, Leagues
Right.
Cup, and now All Star Game, it's getting a bit watered down, in my opinion. But I wanted to
Definitely.
throw it over there to you. Do you think that there's a fan desire for the All Star Game in general? And do you think that fans are getting tired of the Liga MX MLS thing from your point of view, maybe from because as we spoke, you're across the country from me, so maybe things are different over there than it is where I'm at.
Look, to be completely honest with you, as a reporter, the All Star game for me is a little different. It's a central place where I can talk to all the stars or get my questions into all the stars without having to travel across the country. So in that sense, the MLS All Star game is great for content and it's great for stories and sit down interviews, and it's kind of like a hub, I would say. But for a watchability, it's almost like as a reporter, you go to do all those interviews and everything, and then you just go home.
Yeah.
Because like why am I watching this if I'm not getting content, right? So it's just interesting because you're right. I agree. I think it's watered down. I think with Messi and Suarez being on a boat last year instead of at the All Star game, that lost all the draw for me, to be honest, because I knew they weren't taking it seriously. So why should the other players take it seriously?
Right.
Um, and then all of a sudden they had a phantom injury, but they could be on a boat in Mallorca, So it's just something to think about because personally, I would be a lot more excited for this All Star game if it was against the Brazilian All Stars, if it was against the Argentinian All Stars, or if it was against even the Saudi All Stars, Japanese All Stars, right? So I think they could have took this route a little differently. I think Liga MX All Stars was great for the first 2 years it happened, but after last season, and our All Stars not taking it that seriously, I would have loved to see Memphis Depay come here with Neymar and just torch us. I would have loved it. Or shoot, some guys in the Argentinian league, maybe they impress and they get on some short lists for scouts. So I just think, in my opinion, the Liga MX All Stars isn't really beneficial for anybody at this point. I think they've already ran that. At least go away from it and then come back to it. So I don't know. I just thought maybe they could have done a little bit of a better job with finding another person. And I actually might not go this year because I'm like, I already seen it twice. So it's like what new, as a reporter, what new content can I make you if I know that the big guys aren't going to be there? Like, am I going to ask Benteke about the same things I did the last 2 years? So like, it's just a little different. Especially because it's all-star content, so it's difficult, especially when it's not the best all-star. In my opinion, was in DC because of just the photo opportunities and how beautiful DC is. But Austin is a great city, but it's not historic. It's not DC where you have the memorial behind you with all the players, or it's not, you're not at the White House playing pick up soccer with kids. So those photo opportunities aren't there, so you kind of need something else to bring that draw. And I noticed that last year when we were in Columbus, it was like, well, there's nothing really special about this All Star game because it's Columbus. And no offense to Columbus, right? It's a smaller city than like a DC. But let's say if this was like in a Miami, it would be a bigger draw, in my opinion, just based on the MLS All Stars alone. But I think location's a big deal for this All Star game. I think you need to have it in New York, DC, Miami, LA for it to matter, or even San Francisco. Have it in places where there's no soccer team, and then maybe get those people out. So it's just interesting that they went with the Liga MX All Stars again. I would have gone with Brazilian All Stars, Argentinian All Stars, shoot, even Saudi All Stars, and Saudi All Stars would be crazy.
Yeah, you had a couple of really good points I wanted to kind of expand on, right? Because I've heard everybody, and everybody being a relative term, of course, but has been, oh, bring it back East versus West, right?
Mhm.
Okay, that's kind of the same thing but different.
is there enough stars though? Like, let's be
Exactly.
totally honest. Like,
Exactly, right. It's
you,
you're not spread like designated player is just a title. It doesn't mean that they're a star, right? It's not
right.
somebody people will turn out to see, right? So you combine that then, and my big thing was like, oh, I always thought it was cool back in like '99, I think it was. I'll double check that, but they did an MLS America versus MLS World. So like all the
Mm,
American stars versus all of the best from around the world. But even that loses its appeal now because all of our best Americans are forced to get sold overseas because they want to move and play somewhere else. So even that is like, okay, what do we got? We got Brad Guzan in goal, Jordan Morris leading the line. Like,
right.
okay, great. Who's going to turn in for that, right? So then I've never really
Well,
heard anybody talk about. Oh, go ahead.
that actually doesn't work in the NBA, right? The
Right.
NBA does the American versus the world, and the world just destroys. So
Yeah.
it's like, and they're having an issue too with the NBA. So yeah, I don't know if I like that too much because it doesn't work already for the a bigger entity, right?
Right, right. And like I said, I think it's cool on paper, and it was cool back in '99 when it was like, okay, we don't have a lot of the big, the biggest names from
Right.
around the world anymore. But I've never quite heard somebody talk about like a rotation of the best from other leagues. Like everybody's always, I've heard the Saudi one, and I've heard League MX, of course, because it's here. But this idea like getting somebody from Argentina or Brazil, like the best from there, because you're right. First off, if you think about the Brazil's bringing home all of their national team stars, right? You got Neymar there, you got Marcelo who was over
Right.
there, you got all these other. Imagine those guys coming to play for a one-off game against their friends here. That'd be awesome. You'd sell that out in a second. And Argentina
Right.
too, like you mentioned, the idea of oh, bring these guys over. I mean, how many of the Argentinians have we pulled that we now have flipped for, high eight-figure profits, right? I mean, Almada is gone. Peter Martinez has gone, even though he didn't perform very well here. But you brought on so many players that you could then highlight in this group, be like, oh, he's going to do something for us one day.
Right. You
That'd be
imagine
huge.
you imagine the Argentine All Stars with Driussi and Velasco playing for them. You're gonna
Right?
get fan bases of Austin and Dallas to tune in because they
Right.
want to see how their foreign players do. So I don't know. I just think it was Liga MX was a great idea to start, but I think we need to have other leagues and other leagues, even the Turkish league, right? Like other leagues that are in that bubble, right? So no, that would be awesome to see. And I bet you a team like Brazil or like a league like Brazil or Argentina, when they see the dollar size involved, they're gonna say yes. Why not? Like a Brazilian All Star game in Florida, in Orlando, you don't think it's gonna sell out
Right.
60,000? Yes, it will, right? Like
Yeah.
100%. Neymar has an opportunity to come, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So or even like in Vegas, make it in Vegas, right? So like you have a Legion Stadium where they use all the time for international games. It's a hub where people come anyway. You have, in my opinion, I think they need to start making the All Star Game in a place that's different. So instead of, I'm sorry, I hate to say this, but like Ohio or Austin, like great stadiums, beautiful venues, great fan bases. But how do you get the appeal of a person that lives in Miami to fly in for an All Star game? In my opinion, you almost should have it in Vegas every year, and then you just have the Brazilians or the Argentinians come in and make it a whole ordeal. Because even Copa America in Vegas was, I went for Copa America, that was insane, and that was Uruguay versus Brazil. Maybe not the two biggest fan bases in the area, but man, oh man, was the city buzzing for that.
Yeah, man. And that was the other thing I want to touch on was this idea of playing in non-MLS locations, right? Because then, yeah, you're attracting people who may not ever have seen your product or have any desire to see your product. And if they're 2, 3 hours away and one of the teams that are visiting signs a big Colombian player or a big Brazilian player or something like, oh, I'm going to go out and watch him, right? You
Right.
open up that possibility for other people, right? I really like that idea as well. It's not something I've quite ever thought of. And, especially in this time, if you're listening to this now, we have already released our episode talking about USL's Pro Rel, right? USL's Pro Rel, regardless of what it does for USL, is going to put pressure on MLS to be better.
Yeah.
And how they go about that, there are lots of different avenues to do this. And while I don't think that the All Star Game is one of those like heavy hitters, it could be something small to take them a step above anybody else. So it's super super interesting that you said that. I really like that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Like imagine a Vegas event that MLS throws. It's a no brainer, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, and again, it's interesting because it's like you're not invading that space, but you're bringing MLS to a place that has USL already, and it's a place
Right.
that you've tried to get MLS in for a while, and it's a place that you've tried to do all this stuff in. And it's like, okay, well, that makes things interesting now. Like, all right, are these people who are watching USL? And I watched USL last night, and the level's not terrible, but it's different, right? And they go and see the best of the best from MLS, like, oh, maybe that is something I want to keep watching, right? So you just start putting those questions in people's heads.
Yeah, and look, if you have it in a place like Vegas, it's maybe a little more enticing for the Brazilian All Stars to come. Hey, you guys get to go to Vegas. You guys get to be introduced to that lifestyle and to that city, or even the Argentinian one, right? So Vegas is a draw to South America. I know that for a fact because I talked to a lot of Uruguayans when they came here for Copa America. There was an opportunity for Uruguay to play, and they booked it anyway because Vegas is that type of place. So yeah, 100%. If the next All Star game isn't in Miami or in Vegas, I think it's a failure, personally.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, especially with the All Star Game across all sports kind of dwindling. Like I can't remember the
Right.
last time anybody was hyped for the NFL All Star Game, right? Like people drop out of the NFL All Star Game. Like I don't want to play in this, and they're just like, okay, cool. Like it's just a bunch of people having fun, and that's great. Like that's what it should be about. Like that's awesome. But if you're gonna use it, go ahead and use it to your advantage. Don't use it as just a filler.
Well, one thing about the NFL All Star game that's interesting, and it kind of ties on to what I was saying about it being in Vegas, they had it in Hawaii. So it almost enticed the players to go and bring your families and play in this game, and you get a free Hawaii trip, right? So
Right.
that was a way they kind of enticed players to go. So it's interesting to see what MLS can do, and it's almost like why aren't you doing that yet either, right? Like entice Messi to go to Hawaii, right? Like I feel like we're not there yet, but maybe one day we have to entice the players to play in this game.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, eventually it'll get to that point where either they say, okay, we don't need it anymore because they're playing 150 games anyway, or we go and we look at and how we can improve it. But like I said, I think this is really really interesting because there are so many what we call low hanging fruits, right? There's so many things you could do right now tomorrow and be like, oh yeah, well maybe not tomorrow, but for the next year, that's like great, awesome, right? Like let's do it and see what happens. Because at the end of the day, I don't think you can make it much. And I'm going to use these terms lightly. I don't think you can make it much less desirable, right? I think there are enough people out in the world who are like, yeah, it doesn't do much for me, right? I'm not complaining that it exists, but I don't really care, right? So there's not, it's a low risk, high reward thing where you're like, okay, I can make any change I want, and the only thing it'll do is bring it up, and let's see if it works because I think that there's potential there, especially the only thing I hated about when they brought over overseas teams was that it was always and again, people who listen to this know I use this term lightly. It was always the Euro snobs were like, oh my God, you guys lost that much to Arsenal
Yeah,
preseason squad. Or on the flip side, it was, oh, it doesn't matter that your best players beat Arsenal in preseason, right? It was
right.
never a win-win. And Liga MX gets rid of that a little bit, but even then it's like, okay, it gets rid of that, but it also means that most people don't quite care.
Yeah, I mean, Beckham and those LA Galaxy teams actually played some games in Hawaii. Now, if you go to Messi next year and say, hey, if we have the All Star game in Hawaii, will you go? And will you play? If you could get Messi to sign that he'll play, easily you're selling 50,000 in Hawaii.
Oh yeah.
Easily for an All Star game. So, and then you would get people flying in from Japan, Hong Kong, China to see Messi too. So, yeah, I think a stadium change and then having players sign on for it is huge. And I think if you're gonna see like, hey Messi, we'll take your family to Hawaii for free. I think there's a little more incentive there too. Even though he's Messi, he can do whatever he wants, but maybe there's a little more incentive
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Beckham played in Hawaii.
And it's
So
not a bad place to be. You're right. Like if
right,
somebody goes up and you're like, hey, we're gonna go out this way, you want to go? Okay, yeah, I'll take a trip, right? Or do you
yeah,
want to go to Minnesota?
right,
Nah,
and that's why it's so weird to me with Messi. They're choosing Ohio and or in Austin. It's like, what are we doing?
yeah.
Like we can't push those back. We can push those back, you
Yeah.
know?
You're already bent enough to get him here and do all this sort of
Right,
stuff. Like what's two All-Star games nobody cares about?
right. Like let's just move it 2 All Star games back, you know?
Yeah.